Alright, so my video camera kind of cut out there, so I hope you heard about the M2 receptors not working on the Purkinje fibers in the bundle branch system in the heart. They only work on the specific SA node and AV node to reduce the heart rate and contractility. In contrast, the beta 1 receptors in the heart, they act on the SA node, the AV node, the bundle branch system, and the Purkinje fibers. And they do that so that we can increase conductivity, so we can increase the amount of electricity going through the heart so more heart muscle contracts. Okay? I'm going to skip over number 4 because I'm running low on memory on my SD card and I'm trying to delete things off, but I'm going to come back to that, the synthesis of norepinephrine, in a little bit. The thing that's important about that, if I probably won't get a video about it done tonight, but I'll do it in the morning, is going to be your tricyclic antidepressants, if you want to research those. And then your VMAT proteins, which I had a question today on my quiz. And I got it actually wrong. So, with the chemical that's a precursor to norepinephrine being tyrosine. So, you need to know that. Alright, so the one I really want to talk about, and I think is actually kind of interesting, is rebound innervation. So, he calls this something else. I forget what it's called, but I learned it as rebound innervation. Let me look through his little packet here, see what it's exactly called in his own words. Dr. Tran, smoothest talker there is. Denervation supersensitivity. So this is a concept where, say we're constantly inhibiting a neuron, or it gets cut. So we got like a synapse here. Well, this is like an axon terminus. And then here's our cell with a couple of dendrites coming up. One right here. And then here's our cell body from our postganglionic neuron. Alright, so the important thing here about rebound innervation, or denervation supersensitivity, he calls it, is that, say we get like a cut, like you can get nerves cut, and it's pretty gruesome actually when you like cut a nerve because they're so deep in you. A lot of them are, at least the ones that are important enough to notice if you cut them. If you cut it, it's not going to be able to stimulate this postganglionic nerve anymore, right? So say this is part of, what can I think of here? Let's say this effector cell is, let's say this is a neuromuscular junction. So this is a myotome, so this is a muscle fiber right here. One nerve to one muscle cell, or one muscle fiber, that's also called. So what's going to happen if this is cut, and then this cell no longer gets any stimulation? Well, it's going to be like, it's going to atrophy, right? So it's just going to, it's not going to have to do anything anymore. No signals are coming down for it to contract, so it's like, screw it, I'm just going to, get fat and do nothing. And the cell, once it does that, once it suddenly is able to, if it gets repaired, say we repair this nerve and allow it to function again, it's going to be a pretty abrupt shock to this like muscle that hasn't had any stimulation in months, which is usually what it takes to get a nerve repaired in surgery. Okay? So, but the big place we don't really see this, it doesn't, the effects of this don't really happen in our somatic nervous system. So the muscle's just going to basically atrophy, and then once it gets innervated again, it might cramp, it might not feel the best. Your muscle's probably going to cramp because it hasn't been innervated so long. It's going to be like really excited to get it innervated, but it's going to hurt like a bitch when it finally does innervate. But the big place, and the way I remember this, and I think it's actually really cool, is the brain and alcohol. So alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. We all know that, right? We all drink if you're like me, you drink a copious amount every once in a while. And the reason for that is through a lot of different mechanisms, but there's one, we talked about one primary excitatory and one primary inhibitory chemical messenger or neurotransmitter in our body. So what's our primary excitatory one? It's glutamine. And what's our primary inhibitory one? It's GABA. Okay? So in alcoholics, what happens when they withdraw? So alcohol is a CNS, a CNS depressant, right? And, excuse me, I'm having a little trouble here. Maybe I'll get some water. Okay, so what does alcohol do? It inhibits glutamine synapses. So I don't want to get too technical about this because I'm not exactly sure yet, honestly. But it inhibits it. I know that for sure. I'm not sure if it upregulates GABA production or not, and I don't think it actually does. But it's important to know. So when an alcoholic withdraws, they're so used to this inhibition of their glutamine dependent neurons in their brain that when they finally start becoming sober, there's so much neuronal activity going on. It's just like amazing how their brain is turning on and switching on. But that's not necessarily a good thing because the body is really good at achieving homeostasis, right? So it'll achieve homeostasis no matter what. And if you got a lot of alcohol, you get used to it for a long, long, long time. Guess what? You get rebound innervation. So the response to this, when suddenly we're allowing glutamine to be stimulating these postsynaptic neurons in the CNS is, well, you get hyperexcitability, okay? So these ones are firing all the time because they express so many receptors on their dendrites that even like basically one molecule of glutamine could initiate an action potential. So once you withdraw alcohol and you actually start getting glutamine being released, guess what's going to happen? This cell's going to fire off like crazy. Fire off action potentials like crazy. So what do when they withdraw from alcohol? Well, some have alcoholic seizures, and it can kill you. It's so intense that alcoholism is a terrible disease, I guess we call it a disease, because it functions on this mechanism of this rebound innervation or what does he call it again? Denervation supersensitivity. Okay? So the way we get around this, and the way I didn't just mention GABA, that it's an inhibitor or an inhibitory chemical messenger, just to review, even though it is good to review. I also mentioned it because when this is happening, we can initiate some inhibitory neurons to basically cause like an inhibitory response potential in the postsynaptic neuron here, so there could be another one, another neuron synapsing with this one, and we could hyperpolarize the cell so it doesn't shoot off as many action potentials as these glutamine molecules are being released. So how do you initiate GABA? Well, what's another good CNS depressant but doesn't work off blocking glutamine? It is, what do we give all alcoholics who come in and withdraw? When we give them some kind of psychoactive drug, usually we give them like Ativan or something like that. Take right on Ativan. So that's going to stimulate these inhibitory fibers to bring choline into the cell, or chloride ion, and hyperpolarize the cell so it doesn't shoot off as much. So that's rebound innervation. He calls it something different, hypersensitivity, whatever you want to call it. The last thing I want to touch on for the night was kind of dirty. The sweat glands. So what do you do when you're nervous? You sweat, right? So you may think like sweat gland. Well, didn't you say, Brian, that glands were going to be initiated by M1 receptors? Okay. And they're going to secrete something into a duct? Yeah, I did say that. There's one exception, just like the beta 1 was an exception to the rule, the sweat glands are going to be an exception to the rule too. So sweat glands are actually going to be stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system, and this is really weird, and you got to wrap your head around this, but they're going to be stimulated by acetylcholine, just like the autonomic nervous system, but this is technically a sympathetic tract, okay? And it's going to induce sweat, so perspiration. I don't know how to draw that, so I'll draw a sweat gland and an arrow. Okay? And it's going to bind to a certain receptor on there, actually a M1. Even though this is part of the sympathetic tract and comes off the sympathetic para or perivertebral ganglion, it's still going to, the second neuron in the chain is going to release acetylcholine. It's going to bind to an M1 receptor. So it's the only exception to that rule, and it's important to remember because it's highly testable material. Okay, and you sweat. It makes sense though if you think about it, because you sweat when you're really nervous. So that's the end of this video. I'll hit on the synthesis of norepinephrine and its recycling tomorrow, just because I'm getting tired here. It's 11:30 already, Jesus. And also, before I want to finish this video up tonight, I don't know, some people will praising this or going crazy over all the stuff we're learning. Yeah, it's true. It's fucking terrible amount. But the one thing I wanted to say was you guys may not know it, but I'm definitely, or almost definitely, the person in our class with the lowest GPA for undergrad. It's kind of crazy to think that I got in even, so it took me a couple tries. But the only reason I say that is because if I can learn this stuff, which I did, I did. My grades don't reflect that, but I did. I learned it. Then you can learn it too. And you guys are all a lot smarter than me, so you're gonna be fine, okay? So just some words of encouragement for my final video of the night. So rest up, cheers.